What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Let's dive into our first news. CHAEL SONNEN has shared his blunt thoughts on the UFC booking a rematch between MAGOMED ANKALAEV and Alex Pereira. According to him, it's a fight that nobody really asked for, not the fans, not the media, and not even the athletes themselves. The UFC has an unwritten rule that usually favors former champions who defended their titles multiple times. When they lose, they are often granted an immediate rematch. But in this case, SONNEN believes the situation is different, and he doesn't see the demand or excitement for it. During a recent video posted on his YouTube channel, SONNEN explained how the first fight even came together. He said that at the time, the UFC found itself in a tough position with very few options available. The first fight wasn't asked for, SONNEN said. The first time these guys fought, it was because we found ourselves in a situation where there was just nowhere else to go. And believe me, we tried everything. We tried to get Rakic to derail the train. We brought Khalil in as the number 8 guy, and we did everything we could to not make the fight. Finally, we got to the point where we had to make the fight. That initial fight led to Ankalaev finally getting his long-awaited title opportunity, something fans had been calling for after he strung together an impressive unbeaten streak. But even then, SONNEN insists it wasn't exactly the matchup the UFC wanted to book. Now after Pereira's victory, the UFC has scheduled a rematch and SONNEN is puzzled by the decision. Well, now we're remaking the fight, he continued. The same fight that nobody asked for, including the athletes that are involved in the fight. SONNEN added that the issue doesn't stop with just this second fight. He pointed out the bigger problem: what happens if Pereira wins again? I can't imagine, I just can't, that we would then go to a part 3, SONNEN said. And if Pereira wins, it would seem as though we have to go to a part 3. That in his eyes could trap the division in a cycle of rematches, something that could stall fresh contenders from getting their chance at the title. While a Pereira win may logically set up a trilogy, SONNEN noted that Ankalaev's journey to the top was painfully slow. It took him years of consistent wins before he finally secured a title shot, and for the UFC to instantly jump into a trilogy might not make sense, especially when there are other fighters waiting in line for their opportunity. If Pereira retains his belt, SONNEN believes the promotion may need to look at new matchups rather than recycling the same fight again and again. For SONNEN, the situation highlights how the UFC sometimes books fights not because of demand but because of circumstance. Ankalaev versus Pereira 2 might be happening, but in his opinion it's a matchup that lacks the energy and anticipation of a true blockbuster. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We are constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That is why we truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update here on MMA Pulse News. Moving on to another news, MERAB has been turning heads once again, this time during a training session with former flyweight champion Demetrious Johnson. In a video recently uploaded to Johnson's YouTube channel, fans got to see exclusive footage of their sparring and grappling exchanges. What stood out the most was the moment MERAB actually submitted the legendary DJ, proving just how dangerous and relentless his grappling game really is. For many fans, seeing Johnson, a man widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters of all time, caught and forced to tap was both shocking and impressive. Johnson himself admitted that he was surprised by MERAB's strength and pace. He explained that when he got caught in the choke, there was simply no escape. "I had no chance to get out," DJ said, openly acknowledging just how effective MERAB's pressure and technique were. Coming from someone like Johnson, who has faced countless world-class grapplers throughout his career, that level of praise speaks volumes about MERAB's skill set and current form. The video showed just how intense the session was, with both men moving at a high pace, testing one another in scrambles and positional battles. MERAB's trademark style, constant movement, unrelenting pressure, and sharp transitions was on full display. Johnson, despite his experience and incredible fight IQ, found himself unable to match that relentless pace for long stretches. Fans who watched the footage commented that it looked like MERAB was in fight mode even in practice, showing the same energy and determination that he carries inside the octagon. At one point in the footage, Johnson could be heard joking about his age and how difficult it is to keep up with younger, hungry fighters like MERAB. "I'm 39, I can't keep that heat," he laughed, acknowledging the physical difference. Despite the playful tone, it was clear that Johnson respected what MERAB brought to the mat. For MERAB, being able to showcase his skills against a legend like DJ not only builds his reputation further but also highlights why many consider him one of the most dangerous bantamweights in the sport right now. The clip quickly made the rounds online, sparking discussions about just how dominant MERAB could be as he continues to evolve. Submitting a fighter like Johnson in training doesn't count as an official victory, but it is still a statement that reinforces MERAB's rise and his ability to test himself against elite-level opponents, even outside his division. The footage served as a reminder of how much respect MERAB has earned within the MMA community. Moving on to another news, Dana White had the community buzzing when he hinted at something huge. He posted a photo of himself smoking a cigar on his Instagram story, writing, "I have a feeling today is going to be an incredible day." Fans immediately thought a major announcement was coming. sparking endless speculation online. However, just hours later, Dana walked it back, admitting he jumped the gun. He followed up with another post that simply read, "Today is going to be a regular day." The excitement quickly faded, leaving many fans surprised by the sudden retraction. Moving on to another news, Jon Jones has officially announced that he is now coaching Gable Steveson with the mission of turning him into the UFC heavyweight champion. Jones made the reveal on X, sharing with fans that this is not just a partnership but a commitment to developing the Olympic gold medalist into one of the most dangerous fighters in the sport. When a fan asked if Steveson has what it takes to reach the very top, Jones responded with absolute confidence. "It's not a matter of if he can, it's a matter of when," he wrote. Jones went on to explain why he chose Steveson as the fighter he wanted to guide. "I've had many great teammates over the years, but I've always said if I would ever be a coach, it would have to be a wrestler who was completely committed to success. I found my guy and I'm excited to add world championship coach to my resume." Those words carried serious weight given that Jones is widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. The fact that he sees Steveson as worthy of his time and guidance speaks volumes about the potential he believes lies within the young athlete. Just 2 weeks ago, Steveson made his professional MMA debut at LFA 217, where he wasted no time making a statement. He finished Braden Peterson in under 2 minutes, showcasing not only his world-class wrestling but also the power and composure to dominate early in his career. That performance immediately caught the attention of fans and analysts, and with Jones now backing him, the hype around Steveson has grown even bigger. On Wednesday, it was confirmed that Steveson has signed with Dirty Boxing, an emerging promotion aiming to make noise in the combat sports world. He is set to headline Dirty Boxing 4 on October 30th in Nashville, Tennessee, where he will face Billy Swanson. The announcement was met with excitement, as fans are eager to see how quickly Steveson can climb the ranks with his Olympic pedigree and the guidance of a legend like Jones. When asked who he thought would come out on top in that upcoming fight, Jones didn't hesitate. "Gable, he's a phenom," he declared. That single word sums up the belief and confidence Jones has in his protege. With an Olympic gold medal already under his belt, a dominant MMA debut, and now the mentorship of Jon Jones, Gable Steveson's path toward the heavyweight elite looks more promising than ever. Moving on to another news, Max Holloway and Daniel Cormier's playful rivalry continues to give fans some of the funniest moments in the sport. During a recent episode of UFC's Glory Days, Holloway couldn't resist taking a jab at Cormier once again, this time targeting something as simple as his handwriting. When Holloway caught a glimpse of Cormier's autograph, he immediately began roasting him, joking that the signature looked like something a third grader would scribble down. Holloway laughed as he said, "Man, I signed him a photo, calling myself the baddest man on the planet, and then I see his autograph. Terrible. The most terrible photos ever. The signature too. You need to work on that, bro. How are people paying good money for your autograph when it looks like this? I'm tripping. That thing looks like a kid wrote it." Cormier, of course, fired back in his own way. He tried to explain that there's actually a reason behind his handwriting. "So what happened," DC said, "is I learned cursive. You youngsters didn't even learn cursive in school. That's the problem. You guys don't even know what cursive is anymore." He chuckled as he tried to defend himself, making the case that Holloway's generation doesn't care about writing neatly, while his old school approach at least has some structure. Holloway didn't let him off the hook though. He replied, "Oh, I definitely just scribble a name. I learned that from my mom, man. My signature is quick, but at least you can tell it's me." At one point, Holloway even pointed out that Cormier's signature looked like something you would slap onto a check without much thought. He teased him saying, "Bro, I bet you use the same exact signature when you're writing checks. That's terrible. People paying hundreds for this and it looks like that. Come on." Cormier laughed but stood his ground, insisting his cursive style had a certain beauty to it. He said, "You could look at it and go, yeah, that's Daniel Cormier. You know who it is? That's all that matters. It's beautiful in its own way." The banter went back and forth with both men cracking up, and it once again highlighted the chemistry that has made Holloway and Cormier such an entertaining duo on UFC broadcasts and interviews. Their ability to poke fun at each other without crossing the line makes every exchange a must-watch for fans. Holloway has always been known for his sharp wit and relaxed sense of humor, while Cormier brings his own mix of laughter, playful comebacks, and self-deprecation. Together they create moments that feel unscripted, genuine, and hilarious. This back and forth over something as small as a signature is just the latest chapter in their ongoing roast battles. Holloway clearly enjoys keeping the jokes going, while Cormier embraces the role of being on the receiving end. Fans love it because it shows another side of these fighters beyond the octagon. Instead of intense face-offs or heated rivalries, this is pure fun, reminding everyone why Holloway and Cormier are two of the most likable personalities in the game today. Moving on to another news, Alex Pereira has gone off on Magomed Ankalaev ahead of their highly anticipated rematch, unleashing a fiery rant after claiming Ankalaev was avoiding him at the UFC Performance Institute. Pereira accused his rival of ducking face-to-face interactions, suggesting that Ankalaev prefers to hide rather than deal with the confrontation directly. Fueled by Ankalaev's recent trash talk, Pereira fired back in passionate fashion, making it clear that he is not about to back down and will make a statement when they meet again inside the octagon. The bad blood between the two has only grown since their first encounter. Pereira, known for his cold and calm demeanor, let his emotions spill this time, telling fans that Ankalaev is not as fearless as he claims to be. In Pereira's view, Ankalaev talks tough on social media, but avoids real-life confrontations whenever possible. The accusations quickly caught fire online, with fans debating whether Ankalaev had actually been dodging Pereira at the Institute or whether this was just mind games designed to get into the Russian's head before the rematch. Ankalaev didn't stay quiet. Taking to X, he fired back with sharp words of his own. "This clown who I'm fighting said I'm hiding from him." Ankalaev wrote, "I'm giving him a rematch, and he should be very grateful. I whooped him for 5 rounds and I did everything I wanted to him during the fight. Let's focus on fighting and not trash talking." His response was direct, dismissive, and carried the confidence of a man who believes he already proved his superiority once and plans to do it again. But Ankalaev didn't stop there. He followed up with another statement, doubling down on his claims that Pereira's chin won't hold up this time around. "This guy has been knocked out 3 times in his career. I've never been knocked out. This time I will give him his 4th knockout," Ankalaev declared. With those words, he not only questioned Pereira's durability but also promised to finish the job more decisively than before. The tension between the two fighters is at an all-time high, and this war of words has added even more fuel to an already heated rivalry. Pereira sees Ankalaev as a man who hides behind words and avoids real conflict, while Ankalaev views Pereira as someone ungrateful for the opportunity and undeserving of a second shot. Both men are locked in a battle of pride as much as skill, and with each exchange, the stakes for their rematch only grow bigger. Moving on to another news, Darren Till has recently shared his honest thoughts about what he calls one of the UFC's worst decisions. Before 2014, fighters in the promotion had the freedom to secure their own sponsorship deals. On fight nights, they could proudly display those sponsorship logos on their shorts, which allowed them to earn significant money outside of their fight purses. That all came to an end when the UFC struck its exclusive uniform deal with Reebok, and later Venom, completely changing how fighters could earn through sponsorships. The decision was met with plenty of criticism at the time, and even now, years later, fighters like Till are still vocal about the impact it had. During a conversation on Demetrious Johnson's podcast, Mighty Cast, Till explained his view on the matter. He admitted that while he doesn't like to criticize Dana White too much, he also has to stay true to what he believes in. "I don't like to slander Dana too much. He gets a lot of heat, but obviously I have to be a truthful guy as well. I always stand on business with what I believe in," Till said. He described the shift from fighters being able to openly profit from their sponsorships to suddenly being stripped of that opportunity as both confusing and cruel. "Even when you're in the UFC, it's like we're gonna take away your sponsorship now. We're gonna put Venom in there or Reebok." I was like, what the f is going on now? So now the fighters aren't even making money outside of it. It was actually quite cruel, some of it. It was cruel. Till went on to break down the reality that fighters faced once the sponsorship changes took place. Instead of being able to negotiate and bring in multiple sponsors that often paid well, fighters were locked into flat Reebok or Venom pay scales, which many saw as unfair compared to what they had been making before. 10 plus 10 and then your fight's set in stone. "All that does not do it for me," he explained. The loss of those sponsorship opportunities meant that fighters were now more dependent on the UFC's pay structure, with fewer options to supplement their income. Despite his frustration with the decision, Till made it clear that in his personal life now, he has no complaints about money. "I couldn't be loving life more, I'll be honest. I just made a ton of money," he admitted. Still, the fact remains that the deal changed the financial landscape for many fighters. While the UFC does still allow fighters to sign sponsorship deals outside of the octagon, those companies can't be displayed during fight week weigh-ins or in the cage. As a result, the value of those deals is significantly lower than it used to be. Even though it has been more than a decade since the Reebok deal was introduced, it's clear that the frustration hasn't gone away. Fighters who competed in the UFC before 2014 often point out how much more they could make when they had full control over their sponsorships. For many, the shift represented not just a loss of income, but also a loss of autonomy. Darren Till's comments are just the latest reminder that the debate over fighter pay and sponsorship restrictions is far from forgotten. Moving on to another news, the UFC's highly anticipated return to Perth was billed as another blockbuster event, but the reality has fallen far short of expectations. The RAC Arena, which once stood as a hive of energy and excitement with sold-out crowds, has now become the backdrop for a disappointing turnout. Reports of poor ticket sales and desperate discounting paint a stark contrast to the promotion's previous triumphs in the city. Just a couple of years ago, Dana White himself praised Perth as a shining example of the UFC's global expansion. Back in February 2023, UFC 2084 drew a record-breaking crowd of 14,124 fans, nearly filling RAC Arena's 15,000-seat capacity. That event alone brought in an estimated 5.9 million Australian dollars in ticket sales, setting a new benchmark for indoor sporting events across the country. The momentum carried on in August 2024 when UFC 305 once again packed over 14,000 fans into the venue. These events not only generated significant revenue through tickets but also boosted Perth's local economy, pouring millions into hotels, restaurants, and tourism. That makes the current situation even more shocking. Instead of another sold-out spectacle, 7 News Australia has reported that UFC Fight Night 2025 has struggled to attract fans, with the arena only about half full. The official attendance sits at roughly 7,500, leaving the once electric venue noticeably empty. The Western Australia government's financial investment in hosting the UFC is now being called into question. UFC Fight Night was staged with expectations of another sellout, but the response has been underwhelming. Tickets that were once snapped up instantly are now being heavily discounted just to fill the remaining seats. The contrast compared to prior years could not be clearer. At the core of the issue lies the cost of entry. Standard tickets started at more than $200 Australian dollars, while premium packages climbed well past 1,000. For many fans, these inflated prices were simply too much, effectively shutting them out of the live experience. This approach by Dana White and his promotion, banking on higher prices to increase revenue, appears to have backfired. Instead of maximizing profits, the UFC now finds itself in a position where projections estimate ticket sales between 2.25 million and 3 million Australian dollars, which translates to roughly 1.48 million to 1.98 million in US dollars. That is less than half of what UFC 284 generated just 2 years earlier. Even with discounts and bundled incentives, the gap is staggering. For a city that once stood as a crown jewel in the UFC's international calendar, Perth's latest turnout is a sobering reminder of the risks of pricing out the core fan base. The passion and enthusiasm for MMA in Australia remain strong, but this misstep highlights the delicate balance between maximizing revenue and ensuring accessibility for the fans who create the atmosphere. The UFC will now have to reassess its strategy moving forward, as this financial stumble has put a dent in what was once one of their most reliable markets. That's it from MMA Pulse News. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for daily MMA news.